Hi friends, good morning to everyone. In the last session, we have seen the fundamentals and functions. Hope all of you have gone through that. How to define a function, how to call a function, and the purpose of defining functions in a C language. So first, if you have any doubts in the previous session, we can ask. Have any doubts in the previous session?
Sir,
Yes.
that prime numbers we have to find now, sir, between two intervals.
Okay.
I did that without that count, sir. You had used one count in that program.
Yes, since the outer for loop controls the number of numbers to be checked, for example, to the 200 to 500, then inside the inner for loop, we need to check if the number n has any divisor in the range between 2 and n by 2. So here, there, right, how we devised the logic, once you find any number, that means any factor for the given integer n, then you need not continue to check if the given integer n has some other factors. So that's what there we have introduced one variable count. So when the value count reaches 0, what we have done, we have terminated the program execution. That means once the value count reaches 1, right, the logic is the given integer n has some factors, there we need not continue the logic. So the termination is here, right, break operation. Since we need to continue the same process for some other values of n, that's what here for each value of n, count has been set to 0. Here the purpose of introducing count to plus plus is that when you find one factor j for the given integer n, count has been incremented by 1, and immediately we are checking a value. If count is greater than 0, break. So the break statement simply transfers the control to come out of the inner loop. Inner loop is this inner part. So when the control comes out of this inner part, we are checking if count is equal to 0. When count is equal to 0, then the thing is we have tested for all values of j. So that stage n mar j is not equal to 0. Sorry, n mar j is not greater than 0. That means n mar j is equal to 0. Sorry, n mar j is not equal to 0. That means we are not finding any factors for the given n in the range from 2 to n by 2. So since count is 0, this means that the given integer is a prime number. If you omit count plus plus, then you will not get the correct solution.
Sir, but I was able to do, sir. Like I was able to get the answer, sir, even without the count.
Even without the count, you do one thing after this session, right? You try to share your screen so that right
Okay,
I check it. Okay.
okay, sir.
Then any other doubts? Have any other doubts? Okay, in the last session, we focused on functions in a C language. We have seen that a function, this is a group of statements. We can define a function within the opening and closing curly braces. So to define a function, we need to use its type, right? Skeleton, return type function name parameter list. Please recall that return type function name parameter list. Then within the opening and closing curly braces, we have defined the statements of the function. So we can define a group of statements within this opening and closing curly braces. Once we define the function, we need to tell to the compiler that the function has been defined following the main function section. So we need to make the corresponding prototype. The prototype is defined like this. Return type function name parameter list semicolon. Then we can call a function inside the main function so that we can pass some inputs to the function. Function receives inputs in terms of parameters. So please recall function call statement. We can from the function call statement we can pass values to the function definition. So those values are said to be actual parameters, where the parameters or arguments defined in the function definition are called formal parameters. Whenever a function is called, the actual parameters are assigned to the formal parameters, so that the formal parameters are acting as the local variables to the function definition. Formal parameters can be accessible anywhere within the function definition. Finally, the function may return a value to the calling place. If it so, function returns exactly one value to the calling place. So you need to make a return statement. In the return statement, the value of the expression that should be matching with the value of the return type. So that even in the function call statement, you can assign a value to the left hand side variable, or you can directly process it in the expression. So these are the things that we have discussed in the previous session. Now let us look at right defining functions further. How do we define the functions without parameters, and how to make the function prototype, how to call the functions. Do we need to have a return statement inside the function definition? What happens when we do not return a value to the calling place from the function definition? These are the things that we need to explore. Please take the next problem. Write a function. Write a function to print the message and inside the function. Write a function to print the message I am inside the function. Call the function price from the main function. Let us solve this problem. We need to write a function to print one message. For example, including the header file hash include stdio.h. We need to define the function declaration, right? We check it later. Int main. Following the function int main, what we have to do, we need to define one function. The function should print the message. For example, I am inside the function. So in that case, the function would not like to return a value to the calling place. So when the function is not returning a value to the calling place, its return type is void. Void, which indicates that no value is to be returned from the function definition. Void, for example, we have the function name as print message. Print message. Then within the opening and closing curly braces, we do like to simply print one message. For example, printf slash n. I am inside the function. This is the message to be output when we call a function. How do we call a function? We need to use the name of the function,
Sir,
right? So, yes,
open parenthesis, sir.
yeah, in open parenthesis is missing in printer statement. Printer, good, opening parenthesis. To call a function, we need to use the function name. As we have seen in the previous example, factorial, we have called the factorial function by passing the different parameters, right? First stage n, second r, third n minus r. This example will not have any actual and formal parameters because this is return type. Function name is print message. Parameter list is empty. That means the formal parameter list is empty. That means we are not passing any parameters, actual parameters during the function call, so that no values are to be extracted from or received from the function call. So we are not processing anything based on the parameters. Instead, right, we are simply printing the message. Printf slash and I am inside the function. So to call a function, we can use its function name, print message, parenthesis. One time we are calling, second time we are calling the function, third time we are calling the function. Or this can be enclosed using a for loop. For I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to 3, I plus plus. We can call a function a print message. Now have a look into this code. Let us save the file first. I think file name is cp37. Check for compile time errors. F9. One error is there. What is the error? I'm pressing the enter key. Have a look into this error message. Call to undefined function print message in function main. So when the compiler encounters right this function call, because program execution begins at the main function, statements are executed in the sequential order. This is the first, the highlighted statement. This is the first statement to be executed. Print message. So clearly compiler encounters that print message is an undefined one. So we need to declare the function prototype. What is a function prototype? Return type, name of the function, then type of the parameter list, semicolon, that defines the function prototype. For example, void print message, opening and closing parentheses, then semicolon. This is to be a function prototype. Prototype means model. What is the structure of the function? Name of the function, return type of the function, and type of the parameters list, actual parameters or type of formal parameters list. That should be declared before the main function as a function prototype. This is necessary, right, to tell the compiler, because when the compiler encounters the first function call, it will not know, right, what is print message. So that we need to inform to the compiler before the main function section. So what is the function prototype? Return type function name, the parameter lists, data type, semicolon. Where should we declare the function prototype? Function prototype should be declared before the main function section. Now let us check the code. File, save, F9. No compile time errors are. Control F9. You can see the message. I am inside the function. Second line, right? Same. I am inside the function. Third line, I am inside the function. So the function has been called thrice. This is the first function call, print message. This is the first call. This is the second call, and this is the third call. So thrice we are calling the function, right? No changes are there since only one printf message is given. It seems that we are expecting this message thrice because of three function calls are made. So in this function, the actual parameter list is empty. Formal parameter list is empty. This is the actual parameter. And this is the formal parameter list. Since both actual and formal parameter list is empty, here also in the function prototype, you should not define any type here. So here, this is the way of calling a functions when the function is not taking any parameter. So this is said to be functions or function without parameter and without return value. Without return value, because only one value is going to be returned from a function. Here in this, the return type, right, void, that indicates that no value is returned from the function. For example, here if we try to write a statement as I did right in the factorial program, for example, return 12. Now what happens? One error. What is the error? Print message cannot return a value in function message because here the return type is void. This indicates that you cannot use any value to be returned. So return 12, right? This results in compile time error because the return type is void. So you cannot return a value. In case if you try to give a dummy return statement, return F9, there is no issue. Dummy return, right, simply transfers the control to the calling place, right? Control F9, you can see the message thrice. Return some return space value is completely different from return semicolon. We can use right return semicolon any number of times in a function definition because unconditionally a control is returned to the calling place so that the subsequent statements will never get executed. So in this example, right, you should not use any return statement. That means return expression a semicolon. That results in a compile time error. So this is one kind of function. Function which are not or function which is not taking any parameter and the function which is not returning a value to the calling place. Understand? Have any doubt in this example? Functions without a parameter and without a return value to the calling place. Okay, see the next example. When a function is taking in no parameter and at the same time we do like to return a value to the calling please. Please take this example. Design or write a function to get an integer from the keyboard. Return the result to the main function and print it. Have a header file hash include stdio.h. Let us define the declaration later. Int main function prototype should be defined. Here we need to define a function to read an integer. For example, let us have a function get integer. Get integer, right? This is the name of the function. Assuming that the parameter list is empty, let us have the return type integer 1. Int get integer. Here we need to read one integer from the keyboard. Since this is the function definition, please understand that whenever you need input value, before that, please have a reasonable printf statement. So here I do like to have one printf message, printf, please enter the integer. How do we get an integer inside this function definition? Using the variable. For example, scanf percentage d, say ampersand n. What is n? N should be declared as integer type, integer n. Scanf percentage d ampersand n. Then let us return a value to the calling place, return n, using the statement return expression. Now what happens? We have returned a function. We have returned a function to read one integer from the keyboard, and the value is to be returned to the calling place because of the return type is integer 1. Here we have introduced a return statement, return the variable, right? N is returned to the calling place. So inside the main function, there are two things to be noted. One, we can call a function, for example, get integer. How do we call a function? Function name, then specify the actual parameters. Actual parameters, since the formal parameter list is empty, we should not pass any values in the actual parameter list. Here the function is getting a value, right? Our function is returning a value. Function call is getting a value from the function definition, or the function returns a value to the calling place. Since the type is integer 1, it should be processed in the integer variable or the compatible higher data type, right? Float, long int. For example, here let us declare the variables or one variable int x. Here we can write x is equal to get integer. Then if you want, we can print the value, print of slash n, x is equal to percentage d slash n, x is equal to percentage d comma x. The value of x is printed. If we call a function second time, alt control insert, then shift insert. X is equal to get integer, printf x is equal to percentage dx. The value of x is printed. Then shift insert. Third time we are calling a function to read one integer and the value is returned from the function definition. So in this case, we need to make a return type. We need to make a prototype. In case if we don't have a prototype, for example, let us check the code. File, save, cp38, F9. What happens? One compile time error will be call to undefined function. What is the function name? Get integer in function main. This is the error message. So in the main function, we have called one undefined function that is called get integer. So make a function prototype before the main function section. How do we make return type? Function name. Function name is get integer. Then parameter list. Then the parameter list you need to specify the type of each variable by separating the comma operator. This is a function prototype. This is said to be a function call. This is said to be a function call. Now the program will compile. Now it has been compiled. Control F9. What happens? Program execution begins at the main function. We have declared one variable x. Then x is equal to get integer. We have called a function from the main function. So get integer will get executed. Please execute these steps. Having one variable n, please enter the integer. We have obtained the integer through the scanf statement. The input value is assigned to the variable n. That's what here it prompts the message, please enter the integer. Suppose if I input 10, pressing enter key, what happens? The return n statement will get executed. This return statement returns a value of n to the calling place so that this highlighted place receives a value 10. And since this is the integer value, this integer value is further be assigned in the left hand side variable x, so that the left hand side variable x is assigned a value 10 and it will get printed. So if I press enter, we can see the message x is equal to 10. And then the next statement is executed, x is equal to get integer, the second function call. This statement, it prompts again to enter the integer. For example, if I input 20, we can see the message x is equal to 20. Then it prompts to please enter the message, enter the integer. Say 30, x is equal to 30 is printed. Finally, the third printf statement prints the value of x is 30. So in this case, we have defined a function. This is another category of defining a functions. Function without parameter and return value to the calling place, or without parameter and with return statement, or with return value. So in the previous example, without parameter is there, without return value is there. But in this example, the function is not taking any parameter and it tries to return exactly one value to the calling place. For example, have a look into these executable statements. I like to use these two return statements. One is return n and another one is return n star n. 1, 2, 3. So the expected result is x is equal to 1, x is equal to 2, x is equal to 3. So this seems that when the control enters into the first return statement, that's all. The value of n is returned from the function definition. So following this return statement, you can have any executable statements, scanf, printf, right, assignment statement, processing statements, anything. But this will never get executed. That means control will not come back again, right, to execute the statement following the return statement. This is important. So how many return expressions, return statements can be placed inside the function? Logically, a function can have several return statements, but once the control is transferred from the first return statement, that's all, control comes out of the function definition. It will not come back again to execute the next statement following the return statement. This will never get executed. Understand or not? Have any doubts in this example?
Sir,
Yes.
explain the last step, the return n star.
Return n star n.
Yes, sir.
Okay, 1 minute. Here, 1 minute. Let me give return n star n. There is no problem. Return n or return n star n, return 10 plus 2, return 10 minus 2. So this is the syntax of a return statement. The return statement takes this general form. Return, after that you need to specify the expression. Return, specify the expression. The expression is evaluated and the single value or the final value of the expression is going to be returned to the calling place. For example, here int main function is f having some return statement, return n star n. That means n square is evaluated first, and then this result is returned to the calling place some x is equal to. So this n square is returned to the calling place. Even you can have return 1, return 2, return 3, or some a is equal to n star n. You can use the statement simply return a. The value of a is returned to the calling place. Return n star n. N star n is evaluated first and it is returned to the calling place. You can have any number of return statements. Return n star n or return n. In this case, please have the scenario. First we have return n star n. Second, for example, if we have return n plus n, what is the meaning? Statements are executed in the sequential order. When the control comes to call the function f has been called without passing any parameter. Statements of the function f are executed in the sequential order. Now have these two statements. One is return a. Following that we have return n plus n. You know that the sequential execution is taken place. Even having these two statements, first statement to be executed is return a. Return a, this means the value of a is returned to the calling place. Who is the caller? Who called this function? main function called the user defined function f. Suppose here int f. Since return value is integer 1, return a simply transfers the control to the calling place. Suppose 10 means the value of x is further assigned a value 10. Value of x is set to a value 10. Then control will not come back again to execute this return n plus n statement. Of the function definition, it will not again enter into the function definition. That means to execute the next return statement if any, or next executable statements if any. So to call the function again, you need to call the same right statement. For example, x is equal to f. That stage the function may be called second time, but when you call the function second time, again the statements are executed in the sequential order. So in the function definition, you can have any number of return statements. That is not an issue. But once the control executes one return statement or the first return statement sequentially, that's all. Value is returned to the calling place so that there is no chance to execute the statement following the first return statement or any statements which are available right following the return statement. So that's what in this example, if you have return n semicolon, subsequently return n star n, there is no issue. First return statement returns a value of n to the calling place. That's all. Return n star n. This will never be executed. I write here in comment. This will never be executed. Control will never come back to execute the statement return n star n. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have said right two things to be noted. First one, when you make a function call, please think of its return type. In case the return type is something, right? The function is returning a value. The value should be processed in the left-hand side variable. This is the first thing to be noted in the function call statement. So clearly get integer. This is the function call. We have specified the left-hand side variable x so that the value is assigned or processed in the left-hand side variable. But have a look into this function call. For example, the last function call, get integer. I have given a message printf /n end of main. Now let's check what happens. Since get integer, this is the function. Simply this is the fourth function call. However, the function is trying to return the integer value, but we have not processed any left-hand side variable. In this case, what happens? Have a look into this compile time status. No errors, but run the code and check if end of main message is displayed. Enter the integer, say 1, 2, 3. After 3, right, I try to give the input 4. Then have a look into this outcome. First 3 lines, okay, x is 1, x is 2, and x is 3. Fourth time the function has been called. That means get integer semicolon, no doubt. That is the fourth function call. This is the fourth function call. In this case, what happens? Control is transferred to execute this function call. No problem. It prompts one integer. We have given the integer value as 4. Return this n. First return statement returns a value of n to the calling place. Here 4 is returned to this place. Since we don't have any left hand side variable in the function call statement, the returned value is lost, L-O-S-T, right? Returned value is lost. So the value 4, the returned value 4 is not stored or not kept in any variable. That's all. Subsequently, if we have a printf statement or even have a scanf statement, there is no 4, right? Or there is no right variable or the input value, right? 4 should not be assigned to any variable in the scanf statement. Simply the value 4 is lost, that's all. Subsequently, whatever the statements you have, that will get executed sequentially. So printf slash and end of main, no problem. The returned value is lost, that's all. Then further, if you have x is equal to get integer, whatever the value returned in the last function call, that is assigned to the left hand side variable. So in this case, no problem. But when we write a function, we need to carefully process the value in the function call statement. I have said two things. This is the first thing. Please have a left hand side variable carefully so that the returned value is processed in the left hand side variable. This is one thing. Second, you can directly print the value in the function call statement. So this example, right, I try to write a comment here, no error, that's all. Return value is lost. Returned value will not be processed or returned value simply lost, that's all. Second thing I am coming to say, when you call a function, in case if you don't like to have the left hand side assignment, this is the left hand side assignment. Function call returns a value 1. For example, this highlighted place receives a value 1. 1 is further being assigned to the left hand side variable. This is the first thing. Second thing, if you don't want to have the left hand side variable, for example, we can directly process in the expression or even in the printf statement. For example, printf returned value is percentage %b, comma, carefully understand, here I do like to call a function get integer, no parameters, semicolon. This is the second thing to be understood, right, when we call a function. So this is the function call. Yes, function name is get integer, parameter list is empty, 100%, right? This is the function call. So when a function is called, control is coming out of this calling place, right? And it executes the function definition. Now it prompts one integer value. That integer is returned to the calling place, return n. Please think the return value is assigned to this highlighted place. If you imagine that get integer of the function called highlighted value, for example, received a value 100, 100 is further printed using this percentage %b format specifier. So you can expect a message returned value is 100. For example, let's run the code 1, 2, 3. Finally, I give a value 100. So you can see the message returned value is 100. Because This is the function call. Function call receives a returned value from the function, and the returned value is not being assigned to the left hand side variable. However, the returned value is directly processed in the function definition, or that is, sorry, processed in the printf definition, right? So printf is also a function, right? So this function directly processes the returned value. This is another case where we can make a function call like this. Understand or not? Understand these two things. When you make a function call, in case if the function is returning a value, you can have a left hand side variable. This is one possibility. Second one, you can avoid the left hand side variable and the returned value is processed in directly the printf statement. This is another case. Likewise, we can have a variable x. For example, I use x is equal to get integer of something plus, right, we can use get integer of something. That means twice we are calling the function get integer, and we like to find this arithmetic for cases, right? 1 2 3, no problem. Please enter the integer 50. Return value is 50. Then please enter the integer 75. Then please enter the integer 100. End of main. In this case, have a look into this scenario. X is equal to 1, x is equal to 2, x is equal to 3, no problem. The values are printed. Last but one case here, printf returned values get integer. This get integer reads the integer 50 and the result is printed here. Returned value is 50. Then x is equal to get integer plus get integer. In this case, when you call a function first time get integer, what happens? We have input a value 100, right? The 100 is assigned to the left hand side variable. Second function call, right? This is not actually made because the value is returned to the left hand side variable x. Then further, further, right, the second call, this has been made, right? Get integer, that is the second input is 100, right? First input is 75, get integer. Second input is 100, so 100 plus 75, 175. For example, we try to print the value x here, updated x. File, save, control F9. 1 2 3, no problem. 50 is printed. Then I give one input 75, I give another input 100, so it seems the expected result is 175. This is what, right, the same thing can also be made in the NCR computation. Please understand, hope you understand, right, up to this return values say 50. Here we have two function calls in the same statement, get integer plus get integer. Twice function call will be made. In this get integer, the value say 75 is received. Then plus get integer, the value say 100 is received. So these two inputs are, right, processed here, so that the result is 100 plus 75, 175. So here, what you need to conclude, there are two things to be understood when a function returns a value to the calling place. First thing is process the return value in the function call statement by having a proper left hand side variable. This is the first thing. Second thing, directly process the return value in the printf statement like this. Printf some expression, then function call statement. Additionally, the functions can be called any number of times in the same function call statement. If you called a function twice, right? Twice the values are returned from the function, and based on the arithmetic operation, the result may be right returned to or assigned to the left hand side variable, or even this can be made as a single printf statement. Printf the returned values percentage d get integer plus get integer or plus get integer plus get integer into 5 minus 10. Any expression can also be put right in the printf statement. Understand the things? Have any doubts? Functions without parameter, no return value. Functions without parameter but returning a value to the calling place. How have we processed the return value from the function? One, we can specify the left hand side variable to receive the return value from the function. Second, we can directly process the return value from the function in the printf statement so that the value will be output. Have any doubts in this? Have any doubts? Okay, I move on to the next one. I consider this example where we like to miss the return type. Hash include stdio.h int main. Suppose consider a function f without parameter. We do like to return a value, say return 100. How do we make a function call? In the function call, say printf one possibility, printf percentage d, function call is f without any parameter. Here we do like to specify the function prototype. This is function prototype. Save the file to save CP39. In this case, have you noticed anything with respect to the rules that we have discussed so far?
So the data type is not given to the function prototype.
Yeah, very good. The data type that we can say as a return type. Return type is not mentioned in the function prototype. First, let us run the code. Control F9. It seems the value returned is 100. Value returned is 100. Second, for example, I do like to change this into 100.25. For example, this is changed to percentage f. Now let us check the code. File is saved. I am pressing F9. No compile time errors. Control F9. I actually pressed the keys Control F9. You can see the effect. But where is the output window? No output window. So please check it carefully. I have pressed Control F9. No output window. So I am moving again to percentage D format specification. 100.25. Now let us check the code. F9, no problem. Control F9, no problem. Program is running. 100.25. First we used 100. There we expected a message 100. For example, return 100. File, save, control F9. Returned value is 100. So this returns a value 100. I make a comment of this line, then I add another line, return 123.45, control F9. This returns a value 123. This returns a value 123, not 123.45. So we have the output, control F9, output is 123. That means only the integer portion is returned. It returns a value 123. In case if the return type is a float 1, float F, what happens? Here assuming that the return type is a float 1, here have the return type float, so have percentage F format specification, file save, control F9, return value state say 123.45. 45 is rate actually stored here, say 0.449997. So that is equivalent to 0.45. Now no problem. Only thing is I say write into a new program, say file new, or copy this code, edit, copy, file new, edit, paste, removing this return type, simply F, here simply F, return 100, no problem, the value 100 is returned to the calling place. Return 123.45, returns a value, right, 123, fractional part is lost. Return some character or capital E. In this case, save the file, save CT40, control F9, ASCII value of capital E. 65 is returned to the calling place. So this returns the ASCII value of capital E, 65. As you said, what has been missed in the function prototype? Return type is missed. Right? Return type is missed. So when you miss a return type, that means omitted. If the return type is omitted in the function definition, ultimately no return type in the function prototype. So when the return type is omitted in the function definition, it is possible for us to have a return expression statement. Ultimately, return 100 is worked. Return 123.45 is worked. Return some character, character capital E. This also worked. So in this case, what happens? The function returns the integer value to the calling place. Function returns integer value to the calling place. So please make a note of this. By default, function returns an integer when the return type is omitted or missed. Very important point. When the return type is omitted, by default, the function returns the integer value. Understand or not? 123.45 fractional part is lost, only the integer portion is returned. Because in C language, by default, the return type of a function is int1. You can ask, sir, what happens when we put int f here, int f here? No problem, you will see the same effect. By default, that means when you omit the return type of a function, by default, the function may return, hope you understand, function may return or function can only return the integer value to the calling place. In case here, instead of print a percentage df, simply write no return value is there. Suppose inside the function f, print f, hi, I am inside the function f. In the main function, you need to call f, opening and closing parenthesis, semicolon. That's all. Function without any parameter, without a return value. That is a case one that we discussed earlier. But in this example, function without taking any parameter, without a return value or without the return type, right? So return type is missed. Return type is missed here. When the return type is missed, please understand the default return type. Integer is taken when you return some value to the calling place. So here we tried to return 100 or 123.45 or some character value. This stage, the default return type of a function, this is taken as integer 1. So here if you miss the return type, here also you have to miss the function prototype, right? Integer 1. For example, if you try to give f2, right, say int f of int f. Now what happens? No problem, because by default here the return type is an integer 1. So if you miss the integer, you have to miss ultimately integer, or we can provide, right, int f, no problem. Suppose here if you provide int f9, no problem. In function prototype, by default, here the return type is taken as integer 1. So this is the another thing to be considered when a function is not taking or not having any return type, but it tries to return some value. That stage, it returns only integer value to the calling place. Integer value, not values, because a function can return only one value to the calling place. Understand? Have any doubts? Have any doubts with respect to these rules? Have any doubts? Okay, please go through the session. I post the materials after some time. If you find any problems, right, please post it in GScure. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
One of you asked a doubt. I think Manasa, please wait. If possible, right? Can you share your screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please share it. Can you maximize the screen?
Sir, is it visible, sir?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, what we have given in the for loop for n is equal to start n less than or equal to end n plus plus. Good. Okay, second for loop for j is equal to 2 j less than or equal to n by 2 j plus plus. Okay, only you have eliminated the uh, count plus plus statement. I think. Am I right? If
Yes.
n mod j is equal to 0, suppose n is equal to 20. 20 means n mod j, 20 mod 2 is equal to 0. Break. You are checking if n mod j is not equal to 0. If n mod j is 0, break. If n mod j not equal to 0, printf slash and percentage d. Try to give the input values. For example, 1 to 2 to 100. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 20, 17, 19, 20. After 17, 19, I think it's not visible to me.
Um,
19, 23, okay, 23, 29, 31, 37, 41, 43, 47, 53. Okay, 97. Okay, fine. This also works good. So you checked if n mod j is equal to 0 based on that, right? The conditional test results in right a break statement. Again, we have checked the current value of n mod j. So based on that, right, we have concluded. So okay, no problem.
okay, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.